Ubisoft, the snake oil peddler of open-world games, has once again piled a great deal of things into a giant hoarder's mound resembling a video game. Even with their company reeling and about to become a subsidiary of Tencent, they're incapable of doing anything different. Ubisoft's regular craft, creating apolitical historical figure assassination simulators from time periods where politics literally determined who lived, whose head was put on a pike to serve as a warning, and who got to write the historical accounts we now misrepresent for entertainment, is achieved by reducing complex civilization-defining conflicts into mere atmospheric backdrop. Treating history as essentially a particularly rowdy costume party with a climbing wall, for protagonists whose entire personality consists of "my parents were murdered." We're asked to believe, with straight faces and wallets open, that these historical killers somehow became architects of change while possessing the philosophical beliefs of a fortune cookie author on a deadline. Figures who can apparently reshape human civilization without ever challenging any established power system beyond occasionally mumbling that perhaps widespread exploitation deserves a vigorous tutting sound from your pursed lips. The protagonists eliminate historical figures not because their targets represent oppressive ideologies worth examining, but because they conveniently orchestrated the protagonist's personal trauma in scenarios so morally ambiguous that they could be illustrated with sock puppets for a particularly slow-witted audience of cats. It was lazy the first couple times, and now it's just shallow. They luck into killing all the right people to make things better instead of being guided by actual beliefs, all the while spouting generic monologues about freedom and choice that you'd expect from a sentient American flag during a 4th of July barbecue. Never mind having enlightened views on freedom and liberty in times where it didn't exist and refusing to spread those beliefs. They have personal wrongs to right. But this time Ubisoft has performed the corporate equivalent of accidentally bumping the diversity button while reaching for the microtransaction lever, stumbling backwards into actual cultural discourse after a decade of tap dancing around anything resembling a meaningful stance. They've committed the cardinal sin, the most political statement a video game can ever make. Introducing a woman and a black man as the leads in a setting that fans have requested with the persistence and subtlety of a car alarm since approximately 15 minutes after the first game launched. Japan, a nation not exactly known for producing much black history, and relegates women to catgirls and fan service. Yet the game itself barely acknowledges its own setup for potential meaningful commentary, treating its protagonist identities with all the narrative significance of a weapon skin selection, present in marketing materials but functionally invisible once you're 15 minutes into the game. The characters' unique perspectives and experience in a society that would view them as outsiders are explored with all the inside of a tourist leaflet, raising questions that the game immediately sprints away from. Yasuke is as reverent as he possibly can be to Japanese culture, while none of the Japanese bat an eye when the first black man they've ever seen shows up. And Naoe somehow ends up feeling like the modern character who would end up using the animus to learn about Yasuke. Perhaps all the external drama this game has created is Ubisoft compensating for the vestigial modern-day framing device in the series, the Animus, outsourcing modern narrative tension that should exist in the game to Twitter threads and subreddits where everyone discusses whether Ubisoft is woke or not, due to our voyeuristic tour through history's greatest hits, only now with marginally more diverse tour guides, but with the same overpriced gift shop at the end. All of that could have been overlooked if it was even marginally better than the previous few games. But despite giving in and setting the game in Japan, where assassins were a class of people, Assassin's Creed, the same damn game but with more cherry blossoms this time, managed to remain as engaging as shoveling snow out of your driveway to get to work. The combat, dodge red attacks, parry blue, repeat until you remember you paid $70 for this. Stealth, hide in a bush, whistle like a demented bird watcher, then watch as every guard within earshot piles blindly into the shrubbery like they didn't just watch 4 other people get pulled in and never come out, leaving one hell of a surprise for the gardener tomorrow. Side content, grind experience because for some reason your hidden blade stops stabbing people lethally if the enemy is a level or 2 higher than you. Parkour. The game is only impressive if you treat it like a feudal Japan Street View simulator, since the terrain is so hostile to free movement, constantly sending you sliding back down like the Animus accidentally loaded Super Mario Sunshine physics, that you're forced to stick to the road and hold W while the game aggressively ignores your attempts to take a shortcut. Shadows is the one open world game where more loading screens would have been an improvement. You'll spend so much time just riding your horse up the same damn scenic mountain to reach the next temple or castle, that a free wallpaper generator would have been a better bargain. The ability to go anywhere a clearly marked road will take you, and do the exact same thing you did in the previous region is not a solid way of designing a near 100-hour game with filler so dense it could have stopped a Mongol invasion. It is, however, the perfect way to wear out your fanbase to the point where you have to subsidize your company with a hefty investment from Tencent. In 3 years, you'll see Assassin's Creed Ancient China, where the protagonist will somehow also be an orphan who climbs things and hates European oppression, but now with 100% more pandas. Before you even begin, you're confronted with a choice of playing Kennen mode, where the game will make decisions for you instead of weighing you down with pesky choices. I never saw the point, since there's no real deviating from the path laid out for you. You can spare a few of the more morally gray people forced to work for the villains on your various hit lists, but most of the time, the game would step in and tell me that I'm wrong and do the thing it wants to do anyways. I don't think anyone at Ubisoft even knows what is going on anymore outside of the Animus. It's just this pathetic thing, left hanging onto the bloated and disgusting body of the game like a male anglerfish, used to it at the lips and serving as an organ to perpetuate more games. There's some sort of AI guide that encourages you to play through these events and find aberrations in the simulation. It feels like ChatGPT should be in the credits for this role. It would be so much easier to just focus on the black main character in this game. People have been eating that slop content up on YouTube ever since the damn game was announced. I'd probably double the views by placing an AI-generated image of Yasuke crying hysterically with a red arrow traveling swiftly down the Y-axis to symbolize Ubisoft's stock price. But I can't. There's far too many actual complaints I've formed, and I prefer to bitch and moan about those instead. According to Ubisoft, Assassin's Creed Shadows is a return to form, which is odd since I feel like they've described every new Assassin's Creed game as a return to form. Mirage was a return to form. Valhalla was a return to form. We're hearing rumors of a Black Flag remake, which you better believe is a return to form. I'm starting to form the impression that no one at Ubisoft has ever played an Assassin's Creed game before and knows what the form is supposed to be. It's supposed to be easier than this, as simple as the History channel makes it look. You take the Da Vinci Code's understanding of history and pair it with an open-world assassination game where the main character intentionally tries to keep all their historical murdering of politicians apolitical. Then wrap that in the veneer that the entire thing was a modern-day person experiencing a video game, and now they're involved with a conspiracy that stretches back throughout history, which they will be the one to end, until they themselves get replaced by a new protagonist when the next modern-day chosen one shows up a game or two later. But returning to the matter of the actual protagonist, Yasuke ended up being the only character I liked, but not because he's that interesting. He could have been, but his presence is wasted since apparently Japan is the least racist country in history according to Ubisoft. Yasuke rising to the top comes down to how unlikable and off-putting the rest of the cast is. The voice actors are either putting on their most racist Japanese accent in English, or doing their best Yong-Ye impression when they can't do that.
Has your skin always been this way?
Yes, Lord Nobunaga.
Yasuke is proven to be a lightning rod of sorts. He was an historical figure at the time, and served under Oda Nobunaga as a sword-bearer. Assassin's Creed reimagines him as a samurai in his service instead. I don't have any issue with him being reimagined in this way and given a bigger role in history, but my concern is the glossing over the xenophobia Yasuke would have experienced as an African man in Japan in a position of respect. Most of the racism directed toward him comes from the few white people in the game. Yeah, that issue would have been uncomfortable to deal with, but when you decide to depict history, ignoring the more uncomfortable parts of it means you aren't depicting history all that well.
This memory is fractured. What was left? It trails off into infinitesimally smaller fragments. I'll fast forward you to the next reassembled memory.
Wait, you can do that? Just fast forward to the important bits? Why are we wasting so much time playing through every single minute of their memories then? I don't know how much of just how the animus is supposed to function is still held onto, but playing as two distinct characters who are never romantically linked seems like it would be an issue for a machine that requires genetic lineage to function. Naoe and Yasuke are not romantically linked and never have a child together, so their memories shouldn't be viewable by the same person. And if the animus now allows you to experience anyone's memories, couldn't we jump into the memories of any of these people from this time and see what's going on far quicker?
While Iga calls its unifier a tyrant, 40,000 of our countrymen ride with me. Is that tyranny?
Yes, no tyrant in history ever had an army of followers to wage brutal war upon people. Yasuke is too big for parkour. He's effectively cut off from the one compelling gameplay mechanic this series made famous. So his unique way of making his way around bases is to barrel through locked doors and gut everyone in front of him. It's like playing as Kratos in a more down-to-earth historical setting, but he hasn't been toned down enough to make the fight challenging. Since Nagato has to go help with the defense of Iga, he gives Naoe his hidden blade and tells her to head up the mountain to the Kofun, which the blade is a key to. A flat blade is a pretty terrible key, since it has no teeth to grab the tumblers. Any blade that fits into the slot would work just as well. It's the equivalent of making a flathead screwdriver the key to your front door. Assassin's Creed Shadows takes a lot of influence from Quentin Tarantino with its music choices, and with this box that you'll never see inside. I never figured out if that's another effect of Yasuke being a character or not, but it's the only thing that ever made sense due to how ill-fitting it all is. Since Naoe got clocked pretty hard in the face, she can't recall what specifically her father told her on the ride to safety. She never even talks about her temporary amnesia. It just becomes a thing at a pivotal moment near the end of the game. I'm more surprised that Nagato rode all the way here from Iga. Tomiko's homestead is in Setsu, which is 2 provinces over from Iga, and he made that ride with an arrow in his lung.
Who is behind it?
I'm not certain, but you should go to Katano. There's a connection there.
The samurai who knocked Naoe out and stole the box also came to Setsu, and is inside a castle just a short ride up the road from Tomiko's. The stealth gameplay of Assassin's Creed meets all of your expectations. For most, that's not going to be a positive, since all those expectations were rather negative. As Naoe, you're playing your traditional Assassin's Creed game, where you parkour along rooftops, mark targets so you can track them even through walls, and then stab them if your level is high enough for an instant kill. As for new additions to the kit, you have a grappling hook, but you'll have to forgive me if I make rude blowjob motions with my hand and cheek. Just because the Shinbakufu wear no masks doesn't mean they'd inconvenience themselves with unnecessary theatrics by all showing up at the same time for what was going to be a simple package handover. This group is made up of daimyo, high-ranking officials, and warlords, so it can't be too easy to align their schedules so they can all wander through the woods at night in their costumes in case the box they were picking up would be stolen. the theft of which they had no knowledge of or where she was headed, but somehow lucked into her on this path. The only thing Ubisoft believes in that can compel someone to wage assassination on a large group of people is violently losing your parent. It's not even something I enjoy taking the piss out of them for anymore. The main character losing their father shouldn't evoke the same emotional response as an opening title credit sequence that goes on for way too long.
No! Let them suffer! Let them die in pain!
What's the point of someone dying slowly if you're not even going to stay around and watch them suffer? Naoe has now been rescued twice, this time by an old man and a young boy because a friendly child is exactly what these righteous murderers needed to lighten the mood back at base. I'm more than a little curious how the Animus knows to do a flashback here. After all, it is a machine that allows one to live out extended flashbacks of their ancestors. I just have to wonder why they didn't just start there. Do I really need a tutorial on how to fight? I already did plenty of that. I know it was intentionally easy for the opening's convenience, but I still got the gist of it.
This training is enough. You have other obligations.
I am the daughter of one of Iga's greatest warriors. Don't I have a reputation to uphold?
You are also a daughter of Iga. That means caring for the people within it.
Nagato had some weird intentions for his daughter. He only trained her in ninjutsu. But when she wants to be a ninja like all the others in Iga, he's coy on the matter. Apparently, he was teaching her ninjutsu so she could better care for the elderly.
Not ready yet. Come later.
My father said you needed my help.
So. An old woman forgets.
Let me help.
Everyone sounds as if a Japanese company decided to film their worker safety video with their own employees for the new English-speaking branch of the company. I don't know why they couldn't have just copied Ghost of Tsushima's approach to voice acting. They copied as much as they could everywhere else from it.
You need higher ground to find what haunts me. Climb the old tower.
Someone has been stealing Auntie Matsu's crops, so Naoe goes to find the culprit by first climbing a tower. I'll allow you to pause for a full minute of groaning and eye-rolling here if you like. From there, she discovered a dead deer that was shot by two bandits in the woods near it, who apparently killed a potential meal, and we're just going to leave it there to rot while complaining about being hungry. I have no idea what the purpose of that flashback was, but if you want to see how it ends, you have to hunt them down as an optional quest and do a rhythm minigame to focus your mind, since recalling your own memories is simply that difficult. After learning that her father is dead, Naoe doesn't move for several days straight. This is the most I can ever relate to her, since this was the emotional state I found myself in while playing through this garbage. Genjiro's art style and composition is incredibly modern, wouldn't you say? I don't believe the game ever gave a reason for why Junjiro and Soren were traveling through the woods that night and discovered Naoe and her father. We later learned that Junjiro was the son of a samurai, but that doesn't explain why he was tagging along with Soren and willing to stay inside this abandoned temple for the winter. We get a montage of Naoe healing from her wounds and regaining her strength. Interestingly enough, she climbs in a remarkably normal way compared to her parkour where she launches herself up walls.
Vengeance is a lonely path, Naoe. Believe me, there are other ways to heal.
Vengeance in this game is a group activity that builds lasting positive bonds with many people. There's no PTSD or regret to be found.
I'll have to make changes to the place.
Then it is time to start gathering supplies.
You know the drill. Build your base of operations up by finding materials out in the world. New buildings let you upgrade weapons and armor, and most useful of all, acquire more scouts and fast travel locations. In order to make this game even more frustrating, it doesn't actually place the waypoint on your map for objectives, but provides some general clues to the location, and then you have to use scouts to scan areas to find the waypoint. But scouts are also used to bring back building materials for the base. So at the beginning of the game, when you have only 2 scouts, you end up not being able to find your objective or acquire many resources every season. The only other base building feature worth mentioning is that you can turn into an animal sanctuary. Several years go by in this game according to the amount of changing seasons, but the historical events that play out took place in just under a year. Seasons can also change mid-mission. At one point, a cutscene began in the spring and ended in the winter. I knew the cutscenes in these games can feel like they last for months, but I didn't expect on-screen effects to drive the point home. Soren pawns off Junjiro into Naoe's care because children can never have responsible adults in their lives in a video game. The old monk knows Naoe is on a quest for vengeance and will be in danger, and he also knows that Naoe killed Junjiro's father, but he's got a pilgrimage to go on and someone needs to feed this kid. Does Naoe have eidetic memory? She remembered every single detail of nearly a dozen people she only briefly saw while lying in the dirt in pain while it was dark out a year ago. I'm going to start with all of Naoe's flashbacks before moving on to her hit list. To recall her past, you have to go on a series of missions where you practice Kujakiri, the ancient art of rhythm-based minigames. All of the elders tell Naoe to disobey her father and go fight against Nobunaga's forces. Boomers of every age are willing to send the young to die. You wouldn't be able to stab someone like that with a katana while pinned on your back. Your arm and wrist couldn't extend far enough to drive the blade straight into the guy's side all the way to the hilt. That's going to require a lot of force and leverage that you just wouldn't have. Games like to treat ludonarrative dissonance like it's something they can immunize themselves from by acknowledging it once at the start. Naoe gets over her first kill like modern girls get over their first piercing. This game wants to be respectful to Japanese history and culture, to the point where you attend slow tea ceremonies, poetry writing parties, praying at temples, and even removing your sandals when entering a home. But then they go and score music like this for their fight scenes. In the next flashback, Naoe is contemplating the horror of being an Assassin's Creed main character after taking her first life, and her father wishes she had been spared having to kill people. And then he trains her to be an even more efficient killer. But first you have to do a tutorial on Kujikiri, which is the thing you had to do to begin this flashback.
Are you finished your training?
Have you finished your training? Or optionally, are you finished with your training?
We lost contact with one of our watchtowers. I want you to check on the Egans posted there.
I mean, the watchtower is right there. If there was something wrong there, you could probably see it.
I need to see what's happening inside. I should use the hook, Momochi-san, that you gave me.
These flashbacks keep serving as tutorials for things I've already mastered. I get the feeling this was originally the start of the game, but split up and turned into these side quest flashbacks. While searching Hijimi Castle for Oda Nobunaga's agents, one of them slips up behind Naoe but is killed by a Tori Hanzo, then delivers a scroll to Nagato he took from a courier that detailed plans to take the box from Nagato. In reality, Hanzo forged that letter to try and get Nagato and Naoe out of the village to protect them, but he actually accurately predicted that people were coming for the box tonight during Nobunaga's invasion. Before you can assassinate the people responsible for killing Naoe's father and taking his precious box, you have to first locate them, which means 3 to 4 missions where you gather intel or allies, and sometimes just listen to 2 people speak loudly about their criminal plans in public, like these 2 in the alley talking about forged merchant documents for Teppo. Taking the forged documents from the crooked merchants allows Naoe to pretend to be a merchant herself and obtain an audience with Imai Sokyu, which is a smart ploy for an assassin, but Naoe doesn't change her outfit for this and she walks in strapped with shinobi weapons claiming to be a merchant, and no one bats an eye. Imai Sokyu's son tells Naoe that to get an audience with his father, she'll need to attend his tea ceremony, so Naoe has to get her hands on a kasode to wear and learn proper tea ceremony etiquette. There's a lot of missions in the game like this, as if it wants you to earn a cultural victory in civilization. I want to kill people, not slowly walk behind this guy, learn how to spin a tea bowl to the proper angle, and how low to bow to my host.
Free from pride or prejudice, we can discuss art, poetry, architecture.
Cryptocurrency, DMT, cold plunges, dating. Tea ceremonies were simply podcasts in feudal Japan. The kasode maker needs silk, which is being held by pirates just out in the bay, which isn't a very safe place for pirates to linger, being the same location they're pirating from, and they're also sailing a Portuguese-style ship despite being Japanese. At Naoe's request, Imai Soken gathered women with an interest in Teppo for the tea ceremony. One of them is the woman who shot Naoe on the night her father was killed, and that woman should recognize Naoe, but that's not the case here. Wakasa invites you over to her place and she's so interested in Naoe that she wants to tell her how she plans to take over Sakai with rifles and pirates and smugglers. You know, casual conversation stuff. Tea ceremonies really open you up to conversations. That Teppo on Wakasa's wall wouldn't be loaded, and Naoe didn't strike the wick to fire it anyways. Wada Kurataki, the one-eared man, is the next target. Naoe teams up with 2 warrior monks, Kyanyo and Yaya, to find him. They give you some busy work to recruit a former monk leading the remnants of his temple, who wants Naoe to reclaim a statue of Shinron that was stolen from them by bandits in a raid. We're here to recruit this guy and his men for an assault on the castle. If he can't hold off some bandits, then he's hardly going to amount to much in a castle fight. Before you start the raid on the castle, you come across an animus rift right outside the meeting. Inside, the guide speaks to you, the player, and informs you how sorry she is that you're playing through this. I'm serious. It's like the game is making the fatigue of playing it canon. They make a huge deal out of the attack on Amagasaki Castle, but when you consider I've taken down entire castles on my own for just a few pieces of armor, I hardly think I needed the illusion of help, especially when assaulting the castle and killing Wada is no different from the side objectives you do in them anyway.
Where is the box?
Punctuating for emphasis doesn't help a dying man understand the question better.
And every day since, I have thought of only one thing. Making you suffer.
But you killed him quickly, unlike your father who he demanded to die slowly. You had the choice of telling Mitsumune that killing the soldiers is wrong, because as the main character, only your blood feud is legitimate. He still kills the soldier even if you tell them to spare him. All that changes is Yaya will more willingly join Naoe's league as a summonal ally in battle, once you finish your side quest chain after this, of course. Akechi Mitsuhide wants to meet with Naoe, but since he did know her location, he sent a courier through an area where he knew her scouts would find him. I'm more interested in how he knows anything about Naoe. She hasn't exactly been advertising herself. He even directs Naoe to meet him at a location where she killed the man who took the box from Iga, which should clue her in that he's likely a member of the group who killed her father, since how many people can actually know about that? Mitsuhide could have chosen a meeting location that didn't require Naoe to kill all the guards protecting him. Mitsuhide wants Naoe's help killing Oda Nobunaga. According to him, Oda leads the group that killed her father, and since we know this game isn't going to end with Nobunaga's death in the first 10 hours, They may as well twirl Mitsuhide's mustache because it's a little too obvious he's setting us up. You would think Mitsuhide would use Naoe to take the fall for killing Nobunaga so he could go unnoticed and make sure she died in the process, accomplishing two objectives at once. But that isn't the case. His plan is to sneak her in while his army assaults Nobunaga's resting place. She's supposed to just keep him from escaping, but Nobunaga is already cut off by the assault. All Mitsuhide accomplishes is killing Oda Nobunaga, turning all of Japan against him, and setting Naoe on his and the rest of the Shinbakufu's trail. He could have used any shinobi for this, but intentionally chose the one who would want him dead afterward, and never had any plan for taking care of her. To reach Oda Nobunaga, they sneak Naoe inside by hiding her inside a cart full of rice. I don't know why I couldn't just hop over the wall. I'd do it everywhere else no problem.
Who are you?
I am Iga.
Punctuated for emphasis. Before Naoe can kill Nobunaga, Yasuke stops her and is about to kill her when he sees her hidden blade and stops, having seen one previously in Iga and years ago when he was with the Portuguese. He's totally loyal to Nobunaga, up until the point where someone with a hidden knife shows up trying to kill him.
You are the liar. You killed my family.
I have killed many people. I did it to make us strong. One shining sword under heaven, with a single destiny. Not for this Shinbakufu. For the country!
But he still destroyed her home and killed everyone else that she loved. That's revenge-worthy. But she leaves and allows him to commit seppuku.
Is there anything at all that one's given life does not perish?
How easily they have this conversation in poignant moments like this, even though they should be hacking their lungs up in all the smoke.
The Brock soldier is not one of us. Take him, priest. Send him back to wherever he belongs.
And this is where Yasuke's part in history actually came to an end, returning to the Jesuits and never being heard from again. But in this game's fiction, he adventures through Japan, meeting all sorts of notable historical people and participating in several history-making battles. And none of that is ever mentioned by history for some reason. It would be awfully hard to miss the huge black samurai in the midst of the most important time period in Japanese history.
Lord Mitsuhide has an army.
Then you kill them. Kill them all. We will set things right.
Mitsuhide only lived for another 13 days after the death of Nobunaga, so either this assassination plot is going to be a speedrun, or Ubisoft is ignoring that important detail in order to spread this journey out over several in-game years. Then again, the kid back at base never ages despite the seasons changing. Time has no meaning in this series. Genjiro is missing, and now he finds him inside Kitano Castle burning scrolls. How the hell did a chubby kid who can only draw manage to sneak into a secured castle and burn documents? For a guy that didn't know where to find Naoe earlier, Mitsuhide sure knew where she would be tonight and sent his soldiers to kill her. And Yasuke also knew where Naoe would be tonight. And the only thing he knows about her is that she has a cool knife. If she's this easy to predict, then she must be a terrible ninja.
Shoot him! They won't work! It's too wet!
Trained soldiers would know that their teppo wouldn't work in the rain. They often carried umbrellas with them for this very reason.
The blade on your wrist. I have seen it before.
That's why you spared me. At Honnoji.
You are a thread in a knot I need to untangle.
That's the only thing that stopped Yasuke from killing Naoe, and it's not even a good reason. He knows nothing about the assassins or what they stand for. It's just a weird weapon to him.
You're special, samurai. Not for your skin, for your skill.
Ubisoft probably saw that differently.
A girl from Iga with the same blade. Trust her. Help her.
Momochi Sandayu didn't know that Nagato had given Naoe his hidden blade since that only happened tonight during the battle.
I'm going to stick your head on an Egan spear.
You did just walk away from killing Nobunaga the other night who ordered all of that. Why take that anger out on Yasuke? Genjiro stops Naoe from killing Yasuke by telling her how she killed his father, which means just about everyone in this game has that going on for them. It was the samurai who stole the box from her. This lesson that the people Naoe kills might have children and therefore see her as a monster only counts as one time and not the hundreds of other times she kills people. Somehow Genjiro knew Naoe was the one who had killed her father simply because she had a bloody weapon on her. He wanted to kill her out of retribution, but then Soren changed his mind with art therapy, and then Soren decided to entrust Genjiro to his father's killer and checked out for a pilgrimage. You know, after Genjiro admitted that you killed his father, who was one of the Shinbakufu, maybe this painting with X's over their faces is kind of insensitive to him. Yasuke returns to Hideyoshi's castle to see Lady Nene in hopes of learning more about the Shinbakufu. Upon arrival, he discovers Mitsuhide's soldiers there attacking to try and kill Hideyoshi and Nene. This is the same guy who put together an elaborate plan to kill Nobunaga, but when it comes to dealing with Nobunaga's successor, he just sends a small attack force into his castle, even when Hideyoshi isn't there. Apparently, it took only 1 month of training for Yasuke to become one of the greatest, if not the greatest, swordsman in Japan. Win the fight, lose the cutscene. Yasuke then gets into a fight with some rival students who are bullying an old woman, where you once again win the fight but lose the cutscene. Lady Oichi, Nobunaga's younger sister, is a lady who has 6'1" preferences in her dating profile, which I believe means Yasuke is the only dateable man in the country for her at this time. The Japanese must be getting awfully fed up of foreigners mastering their ancient combat arts through montages. Yasuke gets to make up for those earlier losing cutscenes by winning one and reclaiming his master's katana.
You hated Valignano, that much I could see. But why? Who are these people, really? Speak openly. Do they serve themselves? Or their god?
Nobunaga wants to know more about white people, so he sought the opinion of a totally unbiased person, a former slave.
We all want to expand. We all want control. But my purpose is not plunder. My armies bring war, yes, but it is so that peace may follow.
Oh, when you explain it like that, it makes your slaughtering and subjugation of innocent people totally different from how those Europeans go about doing it. Jesus fucking Christ, what is this argument? This game really needs to stop arguing politics. Shinobi attempt to assassinate Nobunaga during the shooting, but are stopped by Yasuke. It's not clear which clan they belong to, and they're never expounded upon. But the next thing Nobunaga does is launch an attack on Iga, which set all this in motion. At this point, the game suffers the same issues that plagued the previous 2 Assassin's Creed games. Traveling to each region under the illusion you can do it in any order you wish, but in truth you're locked out of most of them until you're the right level, unless you want to beat your head against a wall as you die in one hit from every enemy, while inflicting about as much damage as a mosquito hitting your windshield. In this first one with the lowest level requirement, you're to kill Mitsuhide's right-hand man and nephew, Sadaoki. His brother wants you to travel to visit an old samurai turned monk to find a way into the castle, and said samurai wants you to kill rogue samurai terrorizing the country before he'll help you, which ends up being an entire secondary list of targets called the Twisted Tree that you have to kill before you can continue. By the end of the game, you have near a dozen lists of people the game thinks you want to kill, who have 0 development and any reason for you to care. Assassination work shouldn't feel like Excel spreadsheets. This feels like a day at the office. The other quest is to retrieve a letter, the messenger of which was scared off by what he called an Oni, which turns out to be a thief named Ganojo, who took the letter and forces you to fight him to win it back. Strangely, he's the only Japanese character with a decent voice actor who doesn't do the worst accent possible.
I heard some rich merchants are passing through villages near here soon. I might go and say hello.
I don't think you needed to make your exit with a smoke bomb. Yasuke wasn't going to chase you down. Naoe and Yasuke visit a temple expecting Issa Sadaoki to show up and watch a sumo bout, but he's a no-show. However, a stranger there watching the matches engages them in a discussion about already knowing the outcome of the match. Naoe has such a good memory that she was able to paint a detailed drawing of the Shimbakufu members, but not good enough to recognize that this guy is wearing the same robes as the leader of that group, and he turns out to be the former shogun who was deposed by Nobunaga. All of these preparations for assaulting the castle during main missions inevitably feel pointless. Yasuke is supposed to cause a distraction by storming the front, while Naoe slips inside and unlocks the main entrance with a key that she was given by the old samurai. There are still guards all over the area when Naoe slips inside, so it hardly feels like they were drawn away, and once you unlock the door for Yasuke, you still have to choose which one you will play as for the remainder of the mission, while the other one disappears. I guess Ganojo lucked into attacking on this night. I didn't even know he was wrapped up in this.
Then you're here for another type of sword, perhaps?
Depends on the quality of the blade.
Only the finest steel, of course. Forged in the flames of pleasure and chaos.
Ganojo's romance focuses on innuendo around swords and dicks. Then he kills some people he stole from, pisses on their corpse, and talks about having slept with his wife. Is this red flag toxic behavior? Or does Naoe just like bad boys? Or is this Ubisoft's way of steering you toward the lesbian romance by making the straight male insufferable?
They say my mother fell at his feet. So he killed her. My father went mad and attacked them bare-handed. I came home to find their heads on pikes.
Ganojo has murdered parents as well. No wonder we want to bang him. It's the only way these characters could ever relate to each other. I'm gonna put my dead dad into my Tinder profile. I'll let you know how it goes. The romance scenes are about as awkward as 2 action figures being smushed together by a child.
I'll deal with him. Find the rice.
Look, I know this is personal for you, but let me kill this guy you have every right to kill. It's only fair after I let you raw dog it. But then I let him blow himself up with all the rice because that was way funnier, and I didn't know that the response was timed, since there isn't another time response in the game.
The sword may win this battle, but patience will win the war. In this moment, it is wiser to be a fox. It is useless to harm a bird to make it sing. Best to wait for its song.
Tokugawa Ieyasu speaks only in wise proverbs. It's an underlying problem with much of the dialogue. It's also beholden to positive Japanese stereotypes that it can never find anyone who can just act normal and not like a scholar giving a lecture. Hanzo's scenes all play out the same. He tells Naoe she must abandon her path and do something else. Naoe refuses, and then they part, having wasted your time and moved nothing forward.
I am not the one chasing ghosts. There's much you don't know.
And I could tell you, but I won't. Hanze directs Naoe to a kofun in Setsu, where she can learn the truth of the hidden blade she carries. Inside, she finds a journal written by a Spaniard in charge of creating an assassin's order within Japan. And before he'd even managed to recruit more than one person, he was handed the 3 sacred treasures of Japan by the Emperor and tasked with protecting them. The Emperor isn't going to just hand over the 3 most sacred objects that symbolize the country to a foreigner for safekeeping, especially a foreigner wishing to establish an order of assassins who kill important political figures. They already had clans of homegrown shinobi if they wanted to do that. After the kofun, you find another one of those Animus rifts where an ASMR-trained chatbot will pretend you're progressing and actually interested in what's going on. This game has to gaslight you into enjoying it.
Akechi Kagemitsu holds a castle when his uncle, Lord Mitsuhide, is away.
Then we must break in and take his head.
Unless you have an army, I'd suggest a more careful approach.
At what point do all the allies I've built up at home base join me on one of these missions besides Yasuke? The old man is drunk and depressed over the destruction of his clan and almost all of his family, so he's largely useless. Thankfully, the writers gave him a very capable lesbian daughter to make up for his personal and professional failings. I guess all those horrible things that trouble him can't scratch the surface of her boring personality. I was told I needed an army to assault this castle. Turns out I needed one old man who doesn't even fight and his daughter who can shoot a teppo.
No, I like dangerous weapons. What about dangerous women?
Not only does this game's content feel as soulless as dating by a mobile app, the relationships you form in them are equally as bad. Lady Oishi invites Yasuke to Omi to learn what she knows of the Shimbakufu. In Omi, they're collecting tax revenue illegally from peasants through corrupt daikon, and plotting to destroy the teppo factory with stolen gunpowder. So first you stop the ship with the stolen gunpowder by igniting it, which results in nothing but some smoke from the ship since Ubisoft didn't want to animate it being torn apart by the blast.
No daimyo should permit such thievery in their domain.
I would take action myself, but I am too well known as Lady Oichi's bodyguard.
What do you do when you're too well known as Lady Oichi's bodyguard to act? Why, you enlist the most conspicuous person in the country to do it for you. Who would ever guess that Yasuke, the only black samurai in Japan, and famously served under Oda Nobunaga, would be on the hunt? Then there's a mission where it has you row Lady Oichi across a lake, visit a temple to pray, and then just sit and meditate. I'm interested in learning which game design classes push this garbage for AAA experiences. After following a lead to an island with a corrupt daikon or meeting with a Shimbakufu, Lady discovers that Lady Oichi is one of them. She was forced to join the organization due to debt she incurred borrowing money to feed the starving people of Omi after a bad harvest. But why would the Shimbakufu want Oda Nobunaga's younger sister in their group, even as they plotted his death? That's placing a lot of trust in a lady who already doesn't like you and is here against her will not to become a massive liability. She could have warned her brother and destroyed the organization. She certainly has no qualms about doing that now.
What more do you know about this group?
I know little, but I can tell you that Lord Mitsuhide knows all.
Apparently no one in the Shimbakufu knows any of the other members, and none of them know or care about the box, and none of them seem to have any regard for the organization they joined. I'm surprised Lady Oichi is the only one seeking to leave it. Since you can't kill Lady Oichi, it's time to upset Japanese historians by having Yasuke sleep with her after a visit to Cat Island. Then she ghosts him and they never meet again. Lady Nene sent Naoe and Harima to shore up her husband Lord Hideyoshi's lands, which she suspects are targeted by the Shimbakufu. So the first order of business is a meeting of the important figures as they write poems, but the meeting comes under attack by shinobi. Honestly, a ninja attack is the only thing that could actually improve a situation where politicians sit and write poetry together. The attackers failed to kill Kuroda Kanbei, only managing to make off with Ukita Naoe's son. The fact that they gain nothing from taking his son and never make any demands afterward should be the only tell everyone needs to know that Ukita Naoe is the one behind the attack. The attackers smelled of a unique incense. Turns out they were smuggling teppo inside incense crates or shrines, and Naoe discovered a fortune they use as a code on a guard who was tricked into letting them inside the Rengoku the other night, and supposedly this Miko is very out of place, but I find her acting just as wooden as anyone else's. But it's enough for Naoe to recognize that she's a fraud and kill her once she blows her cover upon seeing the fortune. The Miko had a letter talking about their special guest at the shrine, a shrine that's open to the public and just down the road from where Yukita's son was kidnapped at the Rengoku. But no one alerted the authorities to the daimyo's child just wandering around, and the kid himself doesn't even try to leave.
I know about the weapons in the temple, and your soldiers tucked away inside Himeji. You are planning another attack. But why capture your own son during the Rengakai? He was almost killed.
I hid him to keep him safe until my business was completed. But you complicated things.
Let's put this together. You planned an attack to kill Kuroda Kanbei at the Rengoku, but you brought your son along with you, requiring you to also steal your son away, and then you failed to kill Kuroda. And now your plan is to have a private meeting with Kuroda and kill him there. Why didn't you just do the last part verse and skip the ninja attack on the poetry reading contest? And also not bring your child to work. You have to deal with the fake guards outside Himeji Castle during the meeting, which you would think means you can't kill any of Kuroda's real guards. But no, you can slaughter the entire castle and it doesn't matter. It's a fake objective like so many others in the game. Kuroda uses Yukita's son to convince him to commit seppuku, so his son isn't blamed along with him by Hideyoshi. But instead of doing it right here, he decides to run to the Tenshu, the highest room in the castle, to die there. And has a samurai die just to buy him time so he could read his son's poem in private, something I'm sure he would have been granted had he requested it. Naoe follows under the Shimbaku lead to a destroyed temple where the ox has captured several monks. She rescues them and is told that the ox will arrive, so she figures she'll wait around and strike him when... and then holy shit, how much more of this is there? Anyway, you know killing the ox isn't going to be as simple as that. Too many soldiers, I guess. And she can't risk the monks or Lord Tadashige's lives, so she has to sit and wait while the ox talks retribution against Hideyoshi, and then when he's gone, she jumps down and does the same thing she did just a moment ago to rescue the monks, only this time for Tadashige, and fuck me, it just keeps going.
Why do you wish to kill the ox? What is your involvement in all of this?
I don't recall ever telling you we wanted to kill the ox. Did they cut a scene out where these two met before?
To engage him head-on at Mickey Castle would be suicide.
What else is new? It's suicide to attack the ox inside its castle, so let's do a few arbitrary objectives first and then engage him head-on inside his castle. I don't want to recruit a former soldier of the ox's army who defected. Just let me sneak in and get the job done. If it's more difficult that way, fine. You can make that part of the gameplay. Prepare heavily and make it easier, or rush in and get it done in a reckless manner. There you go. Problem solved.
Show me those plans you found.
Show me those battle plans you stole. But do it under the camera so the devs don't have the trouble themselves animating it. We want every cutscene to be framed like TV news roundtable panel discussions. I couldn't even tell you what the ox's cause is. Everyone already seems to be fighting someone for the exact same reason. One person's retribution hardly feels different from the other.
Nothing? There's nothing you can tell us?
That one time in Setsu when the Shin Bakufu took the box seems to be the only gathering they ever had. They don't care about one another, don't know each other or their organization's overall objective, and certainly never warn or come to each other's defense. I'm pretty certain they have some conflicting interests with other members as well, like all of them would screw with their leader's goal.
Freedom. We have given them the freedom to choose their own paths.
Freedom is not something people had in this era of Japan, I'm afraid. The country had both an emperor and a shogun, the leader of the de facto warrior caste who were in charge. It was a highly regimented society of class. In this next era, you start off by praying at 3 shrines and then an actual spirit will guide you through the rest of the mission. His name is Kojiro, and he's the dead son of the former daimyo of this land. He appears and disappears throughout this section. So ghosts are a thing in this series now, and it's treated pretty flippantly. Yamato is troubled by political issues between the daimyo and the Akiyama clan. The leader of the temple is moderating the discussions and invites Yasuke to come to the temple for a tour. Outside, Kojiro appears again, knowing exactly what was discussed, and neither Yasuke or Naoe seem concerned about this stranger following them around and knowing everything they discuss in private. He even tells them what to do, promising they'll taste his wrath if they deviate. There isn't any retribution though. You can do things out of the order he demands and nothing will come of it. Jokin Hokyo, the abbot of this temple, invited Yasuke here for a tour and prayer. But he's also the one behind the problems in Yamato and also planned for bandits to steal the sacred scroll that guides peace negotiations today, while Yasuke and Naoe are here. 2 people he knows are trouble and could disrupt his plan. So why invite them if you weren't planning to dispose of them? He seemed to actually want to give his opponents a tour of the temple. Kojiro appears to tell you where to find the scroll that was just stolen in the attack. Again, Naoe and Yasuke don't question him or his motives. They just follow along and the thieves are just a few steps away from the temple, meaning we hardly needed a Deus Ex Machina to find them.
Well, I have noticed a lot of activity over there at the Gokenin no Kanrei's manor. Very suspicious. If it were me, I would pay a visit. See what answers I can find there.
Why not just tell Naoe that Jokin Hokyo is behind everything? Kojiro has no problem doing that at the end after all.
The peace envoys, where are they?
We took them to the Iron Gathering site.
On whose orders?
A great warrior, Matt, promised me gold.
Man or woman?
If it was a woman, she was strong. Or maybe it was her.
He doesn't know if the masked person was a man or a woman, and even alludes to Lady Ayako being the person who had ordered him. Once his mission concludes and the Shinbakufu member is revealed, it becomes incredibly difficult to see how he could have been confused on the masked man's gender.
They took the invitation to Uda Matsuyama Castle. Without it, no peace talks.
Considering the talks are between two people, one of which is her, I think they could just issue a new invitation. Someone tries to assassinate Lady Ayako at the summit, and you have to pick which of these three is the Shinbakufu member. But even if you get it wrong, Kojiro will step in and reveal that the priest Jokin was a Shinbakufu member by telling you to throw a weapon at him which he catches. This entire ordeal could have been ended at the beginning if Kojiro would have just told us.
Where is the box?
Stop wasting my time. Let me get on with dying.
Like always, asking about the box leads to no information.
I remember that sound. You hear it too. The core of Matsunaga Hisehide's troublesome son. He beckons me to the next life.
If you're not going to make your characters care or even ponder if the person leading them around is a ghost or not, don't bother alluding to something that they're uninterested or oblivious to. Naoe Nagahide is enduring assassination attempts by one of the people behind Nobunaga's death, so he sends you to a noodle chef to find out information, and he mentions pirates in Wakasa causing trouble, names their leader and where to find him, but then never specifies how this connects to the people trying to kill Nagahide. His other lead is to protect the remaining Nagahide clan members, which makes way more sense and shouldn't require a noodle chef to tell me to do it since it's obvious. Upon saving the clan members from an attack, a biwa can be heard in the distance being played, and the old lady recognizes it and tells Naoe to go to Saifukugi Temple to learn more about it rather than tell Naoe herself, even though we just saved her life along with her entire family. She clearly knows the history of the tune and why it's important, if she knows why it's an important clue. At the temple, you find an old biwa player who plays the same tune that was heard at both assassination attempts. It was composed by one of his students, Takeda Matooki, who took up with pirates once he was deposed from his castle. There's no reason given for why the old woman from the Nagahide clan recognized the tune being played, nor was there any reason to play a biwa when sending men to kill Nagahide and his family.
The pirate Samemaru works for a man called the Performer. They are meeting here in Obama.
Thanks, Obama.
Takeda Motoaki, cast out by a greater power. Consumed by bitterness, out on a bloody path of revenge.
You have chosen a different path.
She's literally going down a list, killing everyone on it that had anything to do with the death of her father. Just because she smiles when talking to people she doesn't plan to kill doesn't make her noble.
Fate has delivered this one unto me.
What?
Samemaru
No,
is mine. That name, Duarte. How do you know it?
Samemaru the pirate is a slaver, so Yasuke decides to take point on this one while Naoe deals with Matooki. And before dying, Samemaru mentions he works for Duarte. With the Shinbakufu all but destroyed, we can finally turn our attention to the real villains, Europeans.
Mitsuhide has gathered his forces in Shoryuji Castle.
Any reason we waited this long to take out Mitsuhide? His location wasn't a mystery. We could have gone after him at any time.
Lord Nobunaga is watching. They demand blood. So, let's us spill it!
Punctuated for emphasis. Again. Mitsuhide is surprised he has no allies left. Maybe if the Shinbakufu had actually organized and acted as one, this could have ended better. He never came to any of their aid when they were being hunted down by Naoe, and now there's no one left to help him.
Take the castle!
Punctuated once more. Stop it already. Mitsuhide's strategy is to send his men outside the castle wall to fight in the field instead of remaining behind their advantageous defender's position in the castle. Mitsuhide died less than a month after his betrayal of Nobunaga, and he was killed by a bandit named Chobei in a small town he fled to after the battle. Here Ubisoft tries to get away with the known death of this character by having a group of villagers group up around Mitsuhide's body after being killed by either Naoe or Yasuke. One of the Shinbakufu finally spills info. The Shinbakufu is led by the former shogun that Nobunaga toppled, Ashikaga Yoshiaki, the same man Yaoi and Nasuke met at the sumo match, and he has the box, which contains one of the 3 imperial regalia. But the larger issue is that Mitsuhide and Ashikaga would be unlikely to work together since they both wanted to be shogun.
Perhaps you are the greatest of us all.
Yasuke is perhaps the greatest samurai in Japan, according to Mitsuhide. Mitsuhide was yelling this during the fight.
You never were true samurai.
So he changed his mind right quick with an ass whooping, half of which came from Naoe, so it wasn't even a fair fight. The former shogun gives up, having done nothing with the box once he got his hands on it. This was supposed to let him reclaim his rule as shogun, but instead he allowed Naoe to hunt down and kill every member of his organization instead of trying to stop her. Now he has to bargain for his life by tempting Naoe with information on her mother. All of the Shinbakufu amounted to nothing.
Was it a woman?
I neglected to ask.
My spies were more taken with how she faded into nothingness.
The only person Naoe would have interest in is a woman. So why offer her this information for your life if you're not 100% sure that it's someone important to her, and you just use a female pronoun to describe her? Yasuke can't resist the siren call to kill some white folk, so he relents as well in return for information on Duarte. The Shogun's information leads Naoe to a stone slab in the woods with the Assassin's Brotherhood sigil on it. Not exactly the best way to hide a secret location of killers, but I guess they have location branding codes. Only now does Naoe manage to recall everything her father told her on the ride to Tomiko's after the box was stolen. Nagato told her what was inside the box that night and that Naoe's mother had entrusted him with its protection. Not once in the game did Naoe ever mention that she couldn't remember what her father told her that night. This reveal is plopped down into your lap cold and wet. The other two regalia were stolen from the League by the Shimbakufu years ago. No massive undertaking was made to retrieve them except by Naoe's mother Tsuyu, who never returned. And not one of them committed seppuku for their incredible failure to the Emperor's trust, and the Emperor didn't seem to care either. But Naoe's mother might also be alive since Nagato would play her favorite song every night, and one night he heard it being played back to him. The same song Naoe has to play to open the vault. Somehow this multi-ton stone slab swings open with no visible mechanism to move it, let alone anything that would register the music notes as a passcode and activate. Naoe would never have the bright idea to play the song to open the chamber since there's no record of such technology at this time, so she would not even consider it as an option. She's never encountered anything sound activated in her life. Hattori Hanzo shows up and places a second box containing another regalia in the cave. He does this for his own redemption, since his jealousy over Tsuyu marrying Nagato led to him betraying the League to lead the Templars to the regalia, where they slaughtered everyone and took them. You can choose to fight Hanzo or work with him to find Naoe's mother. It's not a real choice since you spare Hanzo after the fight and decide to help him find Naoe's mother anyway. All you save yourself is a boss fight that isn't that memorable.
Go. I will wait for your message.
Wait until the DLC, that way you pay extra for the real ending to this boring story. Back in Obama, Yasuke lights 3 signal fires around the town to lure in the Portuguese, who he kills and then uses their boat to reach a ship carrying Duarte, who is a racist slaver who sold Yasuke to the Jesuits. It's wild how most of the racism is packed into the 2 or 3 white people in this game. Luis, the Jesuit priest who introduced Yasuke to Nobunaga, tells him of the Templars after he learns of them from a letter he took from Duarte's body. He recounts the events of Assassin's Creed 2. You gotta recall the good old days before the series turned into the bad smell you became noseblind to. According to the letter, someone named Kimura Kei is training an army for the Templars in Kii to serve a Nuno Karo, another person responsible for Yasuke's personal tragedy, all of which ended up in Japan. Yasuke tricks his way into the training camp, is identified by Kimura instantly due to his appearance for once, and then fights his way through the Ronin until he challenges Kimura to a duel, which ends up being the toughest fight in the game. The next Templar, the Silver Queen, Yasuke figures can be reasoned with, so he tries to talk her into helping him. Apparently the Templars expected this because she drugs his tea, which is impressive since she prepared that tea right in front of him.
The girl from Iga is a bit harder to find. You? Not so much.
Well, at least someone finally said it, and it had to be the white slaver of all people. The Silver Queen, Lady Tama, is Mitsuhide's daughter, and requests to be the one to kill Yasuke, but she actually saves him and requests he kill Nuno Karo and rescue her brother in order to free them. She could have just shot Nuno with a pistol he handed her to do the job with. He turned his back on her after that.
You speak as if we know each other personally.
We do.
Turns out Yasuke also had a dead parent for character motivation this entire time. Nuno Karo killed his mother. I'm not sure why this is treated like a surprising reveal. That's the basic setup for every Assassin's Creed protagonist, secondary character, villain, possibly all the NPCs you get quests from. Nuno shoots Yasuke's mother and was about to kill Yasuke when an assassin, who somehow snuck onto the ship in the middle of the sea during a storm, interrupts them, gets killed herself, and Yasuke jumps overboard and is eventually picked up by the Jesuits and taken to Japan. These guns don't work when exposed to rain unless protected by an umbrella to keep them dry, but here they fire reliably twice.
We have the regalia already. I was sent here because no one else in my organization cared enough. And look what I accomplished. Look around you, Diogo. Everything you see here is mine. This land, its resources, its people.
Is it? You have nothing. The development for this final villain is little more than he's a white European who's deluded himself into believing he's taken over Japan. Rather than flee, Nuno Karo goes to the top of the castle, which is where everyone goes for a final showdown in this game. They had one idea for how to do this and they stuck with it.
What is this all about?
A declaration of war against the Templar Order.
Hate to break it to you, Yasuke, but the Assassins already have a conflict with the Templars and have had so for thousands of years. This ain't anything new. I don't even feel like I finished a game, and I haven't. With all the killing done, there's nothing left for them to do but hang out until the DLC arrives, and whatever this AI stuff was supposed to be about wraps up with one final Animus Rift, where the competing chatbots speak vaguely to each other about what they accomplished before leaving. I hate this series.
ancient aliens really helped to shape our history.
With this video wrapped up, I don't need to worry about sending Assassin's Creed again for a couple years at least. Instead, you can vote on which of these two more interesting games you'd like to see send next. And you can like and subscribe if you thought this video was pretty good. Maybe you'd like to watch more of them. I don't know, there's reasons. I also have a Patreon if you want to watch me send old games and DLC. And the Patreon will be half off your first month for the next few days. I'm currently working on a Metal Gear Solid video that'll be exclusive to Patreon, along with a Mortal Kombat 11 DLC video. You can find the link for the Patreon down below. Special thanks to Verdictions, Emezare, Stefan Katsinek, Vanilla Pixel, Brain Wayne, Chris, Solomon McGuire, Alexander Cortez, Roman Are You Sleeping, Nervous Nelly, Xavier Distalis, Notorious SKP, Max Headroom, DJ Nelson, Azenith the Succubus, Musical Pumpkin, Castlemania, Zinro, Michelle C., Yaroslav Golubev, Dennis O'Brien, Jake B., Donald Talbot, Montezuma, Aaron Hines, Sky is Under, PK Reed, Eric Kisser, Shadow Wolf Gaming, Urpel Jaeger, Church Kiones, S. Venus, Mario Neto, Ben Hottie, Biohazard, Director Anarchy, and Charmsy.